Hey guys, Solomon here. I hope you're having a great day, and really I hope that you've had a good few weeks. I've had to take a little bit of a break from YouTube, just due to life. And first off, I'm working on Alekhine's defense course, which I'm actually pretty surprised at how strong and sound the Alekhine's defense really is. But on top of that, just life, taxes, family, just, life. So all that to say, though, I am excited to be back, and I'm excited to cover today something that I hope will help you modern defense players, Hippo players, Tigers modern players, and those of you that don't even play the modern at all. Maybe you're thinking about it, maybe you're not, but you just like learning more opening theory. Even if you don't play an opening, learning it can help your game because you're seeing ideas, right? And I didn't really know that a few years ago like I do now, but when I started the channel, I didn't think that teaching openings that I was never planning on playing in tournament chess would actually help my game, but it has a ton because learning ideas can translate in so many more ways than one may think at the start, okay? For example, right, in my video, in which case I've talked about the Nimzowitsch defense and the Kennedy variation of the Nimzowitsch, it's actually kind of changed my approach to how I play against the Scandinavian as white. Who would have thought that learning the Nimzowitsch defense can affect how I play as white against the Scandi? I didn't, right? So no matter where you're coming from, no matter what you play, I hope you enjoy this video. I also want to say too, this is a little bit of a different video in the sense that I'm not telling you what I believe are the best moves in every position. Of course, I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to show you the best options, but I'm trying to give you a lot of flexibility because these kind of positions, they're very hard to work with for black. I'll just be dead honest. And you have to find your style when you see this kind of thing from white. Okay, let's take a look. We're looking at the modern defense, or a start off into the Hippo, in which case white goes into a 150 attack. Okay, we have this move e4, g6, bishop g7, and now d6. Now we see this move of bishop e3. Okay, I see this move all the time, and I know that a lot of Hippo players have a hard time with this. Now, I'm not saying abandon the Hippo. If you want to play the Hippo against this, that's great. I've played the Hippo against this all the time. Okay, but there's some new ideas that I've been working on and just thinking about, and one of them is this move of a6. I'm actually thinking about adopting this move at times, at least, against this move of bishop e3. And what's the point of a6? The point of a6 is to play b5. Okay, we're going to be looking at this move of queen d2, which is very common in online chess. But what about this move of a4? Even though it's only played 8% of the time in online games, I think we should look at it because I think it's a very solid option for white that really puts the pressure on black, because all of a sudden we don't have b5, b4 options. We just don't, right? I mean, if we play b5, we're going to lose that pawn. So now the question is, what do we do here? Okay, if you're a Hippo player, you might lean towards playing something like b6. Maybe you're not a Hippo player, but you just want to be ready to face a5 with b5, right? You don't want to have en passant hit you and everything, gets all crazy. You just want to be able to go, look, you're never going to push unless you want me to play b5, and in that case, I'm totally fine. Okay, that's fine. And if you see a move here like h4, as we're going to see in this video, there's ideas here like h6, preparing for h5 with g5. There's ideas like h5, just straight up telling that pawn you ain't going nowhere. And finally, a move here like knight f6. These are all solid options. Nothing wrong with any of these, okay? But let's go back to a4. This move of e6 is actually a pretty interesting option. And sure, this goes against the usual idea of always have these two pawns ready in the Hippo against a4. But notice, okay, if a move like a5, I think at this point, this early on in the game, I'm not sure if this is good for white. I'm not saying it's a mistake, but I am saying it's very double-edged because that pawn is very advanced. Sure, you've managed to make it so our b pawn cannot move, but that pawn on a5 is feeling a little bit loose to me. In fact, if you castle queenside, all of a sudden that pawn's not really defended well at all. And if you ever defend it with a pawn, our bishop gets that much stronger. So it's kind of a double-edged thing, right? They push the pawn. They're kind of stopping our pawn expansion on the queen side in a sense, but at the same time, that pawn is a target that this rook has to babysit as this game goes on. Depends how you look at it. Here, I would say there's definitely some solid moves. I would recommend you guys to think about this idea. Again, this video, I'm trying to show you guys ideas, right? Just think about these ideas. Knight c6, engine move. And it's pretty strong. I mean, the idea here is that, okay, we're going to look to play h6, knight e7, f5, just start putting pressure in the center. We're directly putting pressure on a5. and on d4 as well. And notice, if white wants to push with d5, first off, our bishop just got more active. Second off, we capture. If the knight takes, I mean, we can gobble up that pawn. If the queen takes, I don't really know what that does, honestly, for white. I mean, we can just take and mess up their pawn structure really bad. Then kick that queen around. I just don't think that's very good. I think the best move here for white, practically at least, is this move of e takes d5. Okay, but that said, I think a lot of players would probably just centralize that knight. I like this idea of knight e7 though, followed by knight f6. We got two attackers on that pawn. We're also looking at knight f5. If you want to play bishop d3, all of a sudden the queen no longer defends that pawn. And if you do play a move like bishop e2, we can castle, knight f5 on the way. I mean, even queen d2, let's play knight f5. Okay. And I think here is a perfect example of kind of what we're looking at. Very active minor pieces here, active bishop on g7. Our bishop on c8 is not doing much yet, but it's not locked in, which is good. It is free to get out at some point, which is a huge plus. If we move like castling kingside, we can take on e3 and, maybe rook e8. If the bishop wants to run to f4, we have ideas like just developing or even just kind of pestering that bishop a little bit more, maybe h6 as well. A lot of ideas there. What about castling queenside? Are we worried about this still? Are we still worried about white just going absolutely bonkers on the king side? I would say no, because again, a5. Right? It's going to be very easy for white to forget about that pawn on a5 and just castle and think they have a huge attack. But all of a sudden, we're the ones with the attacking chances here. That pawn is hanging. And the second that you move this knight, our knight can move at some point, and this bishop is going to be very active. This position is almost -2 for black. So, pretty good position here. We'll take it. Hey guys, I really quickly wanted to tell you about something that we've been working on for over a year. I have partnered with Coastline Creative and we have come out with some exclusive Chess Giant merch. Okay, we got t-shirts, hoodies, tote bags, and more. And if you're interested in getting 10% off, all you got to do is go to my website. Okay, and on there you'll get invited to join my email list. Join my email list and I will send you the discount code there. On top of that, if you want to get 20% instead of 10%, all you got to do is become a supporter on my Patreon. Become a patron and you will get 20% off of all Chess Giant merch in the future. Okay, I hope you guys like the designs. Let me know what you think of them down in the comment section below. Let me know any ideas that you have for future, clothing ideas, design ideas, and all that kind of good stuff that we can put on the site. And let's get back to the video. Okay, so we just looked at this move of e6, in which case against the move of a5, we're okay. I recommend you guys look at this idea of knight c6, and then just natural development from there, continuing to add the pressure, continuing to chip away at that center. And at the end of the day, a move like d5 just usually isn't that great for white. Okay. And again, e6, I played this move, kind of a hippo type move, right? You don't have to play this. Okay. You can play a move like knight f6. Okay. You can, probably knight f6 is the best move I see here. Knight e5 might be a little bit early at this point, just because, d5 isn't even contested at all by a pawn. But yeah, I would say, knight f6 here is a solid option. But if you're trying to play, kind of in a hippo type style, e6 is a good move. What if they don't play a5 and they play something here like h4? Okay. Again, there's different moves. Okay. There's h6, which we're about to look at. There's h5, there's knight f6, but let's take a look at the move of h6. What do we do here? Well, if white plays h5 immediately, we got to lock things up. h6 is pretty much pointless if you're just going to leave the pawn there or take. It's just not that good. Sure, I guess technically it stops them from pushing, but if anything, they can take at some point and you're going to have very weak pawn structure on the king side. So I would really recommend here playing the move of g5. And okay, if you see a move like f4, we can capture. And notice this is a key idea. We have knight c6 attacking the pawn. Okay. Now, if the bishop wants to go back, okay, we develop, right? If we move like knight f3, we can start kind of attacking that bishop. And, the engine has things around even a slight advantage for black against many of white's moves. But going back, if we see a move like knight f3, now we have this opportunity to capture on d4. Play e5 we have a center fork. Now, we're actually not going to go out of this up material. We're going to end up with even material if white here plays a move like bishop e3 and then captures back. But because this knight is on g8, this is a key idea, and we'll cover why later, why the knight not on g8 is so bad for black. Because of that, there's so many different things that can happen, okay? We can take on d4 and play queen f6. That's solid. We can play a move here like bishop g4, trying to distract that queen so that we can capture off that bishop on d4. Knight f6 is also a very playable move. We could even play queen g5. Crazy idea. By the way, if they take on g7, we could take right away. But why not check first? Make white's king kind of run away to an unsafe square. And notice the king can't castle for the rest of the game now. And then capture this bishop. We can take right away. The engine actually likes us checking again on g5. And okay, I mean, if the king goes back, we can take on g7. Notice we would have had the same kind of position if we just, if we just took right away from g5. But because we checked and then came back, same position, but the king cannot castle. And that's huge, right? Just be mindful of the fact that against something like knight d5, that pawn on c7 is attacked. Right, so you got to play a move like king d8 to hold on. So we have uncastled king against uncastled king. We have two isolated pawns. White has one isolated pawn, but in a weird way, it feels like white has more weaknesses because their pawns are so advanced. Our queen is very active. And from here, we're just going to play an active game. Get our pieces involved. And we're just playing chess at this point. You know what that's all about, okay? And all right, going back to queen g5, let's say white doesn't take the bishop and they throw the knight in or something like that. I would say here, you could play bishop g4. Taking on c7 is just really not a great idea because we have king d7 and then your bishop, your bishop's going to be attacking the queen and your king will be attacking the knight. White's going to have two pieces attacked at once, and that is not great for them. So, okay, I mean, white here should play a move like queen d3. Then we play king d7 to defend things, right? King d7, hold on to everything. And okay, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that can happen here. Crazy position, absolutely crazy position. White cannot castle. If they take on g7, we capture back. If they play a move like bishop e3, we centralize our queen. If they play bishop e2, trying to castle, well, in that case, let's take. The queen actually can't take here, guys, because we won the bishop. So after a move like king takes e2, I personally would probably just take this pawn on g2. That's a good move. Bishop takes d4 is a good option. f5 is actually a good option. According to the engine seems to like this move of rook e8 as well, with the idea of playing f5 and just going after this pinned pawn. On top of that, we are, looking at this knight. We are eyeing that knight up because the pawn cannot capture back. There's just a lot of stuff going on here. Crazy position. I understand that this is not everyone's cup of tea, and that's okay. But yeah, pretty crazy position. Either side, white or black, can lose this game with one small mistake. One little mislip, that's it, okay? And all right, going back to h6, what if white delays h5? In fact, what if white doesn't castle queenside at all? In a lot of ways, I actually think that white castling queenside is helpful to us. What if we see a move like queen d2? It might look like they're going to castle queenside, right? They play h5. But now they play f4. They're not castling queenside. They're keeping their king here. They're keeping their options open. By the way, if you play the Austrian attack, 150 attack as white, I recommend you don't castle for a while. What's the point? It's not like your king's safer on c1 than it is on e1. It's actually safer in the center. Because at the very least, you can go to the king side when you need to. Okay. Notice here, because our knight is not on g8, here I don't recommend this whole taking on f4, knight c6 idea, because once we get to the end of it, right, same kind of thing. Now that our knight is here, we don't have bishop takes on queen f6. We just don't, right? We don't have queen g5. We don't have knight f6. Very awkward position for black here. And if we defend the bishop, this don't work now because our bishops get traded off and we lose a pawn. So if your knight has moved and then you see f4, I would recommend pushing here with g4. Okay, slight advantage for white, that's for sure. 0.2 to 0.5, depending on when you're looking at the engine, but this is playable. If you see a move here like castling queenside, you can play f5. Okay, f5 is a major idea. Really against a bunch of different moves, you're going to play f5, really try to solidify this pawn chain. And the whole idea there is that, okay, we play f5. Sure, white could play e5 if they want to. Of course, then this diagonal will be a little bit, sought after from both sides because it's going to be so wide open. Our bishop might not be good, but the moment that we play f5, their battery ram that they've worked so hard for in the 150 is staring at a wall that can never move. So that's the idea there, okay? But we play this move of h6 there. And I just wanted to mention that idea that you can go for that center fork idea against, f4. You can take and go for that center fork idea, but only if your knight's on g8. That's kind of the big piece there, okay? And going back to a6, again, this is only played, this whole a4 move, this is only played 8% of games online. So it's not that common. I do think it's a very good move for white practically. Most players go with queen d2. Most games have this move, okay? What's something that we could go with here? I like knight d7, okay? Some like b5. I think that might be showing our cards a little bit too soon. I like playing a move like knight d7 because white might feel comfortable to play a move like castling queenside, which is very popular again. But I mean, let's just say white doesn't castle right now and they play h4. Okay, there's different options that we have. I would say here one solid move, is either h5, just saying, look, you're not going to play that, or knight f6. Okay, the biggest thing is that you don't let this pawn to h5 because the moment it's there and we can't win it. White has all the leverage. We never really want to take because then we're the ones opening up our king side. We have an isolated pawn on the h file, and I mean, what good is there for us in that? And on top of that, when they do go to h5, they can take whenever they want. They can push whenever they want. They have the leverage. So here, you got to play a move like h6, right? You got to play a move like h5, or you got to play a move like knight f6. Okay, you got to do something to fight for that square. If a move like bishop e2. Here you can actually play the move of b5 because we're threatening to kick that knight and then capture on e4. So that is an option. But once that's stopped, I recommend just playing h5. You don't want that to happen, right? You can make a threat and all that kind of stuff if you want to, but once there's no threat, just put an end to this, okay? And here, if a move like castling queenside, I also think for both you Hippo Pircs, there's so many different openings that, again, there's so many different things that kind of, cross over each other. C5 is a great idea in a position like this, but be careful when you do it. Notice our queen has no support from the rook. Because of that, white can capture. And here they can capture again, because if we take, our queen has no support. They could even play e5. Our knight cannot take, guys. They could play e6. They could just blast our position open, take on g4. I don't know about y'all. Personally, I don't want to be up a pawn and have two sets of double isolated pawns. It just does not look fun. Okay. I just don't like this. I don't. So let me know what you think. But it takes I don't know. I'll be honest. I don't know anyone that would like a position like this personally. The engine's saying for us to castle, believe it or not. That's just crazy. Anyways, good old Stockfish, just feeling comfortable in this kind of position, not even saying it's +1, but okay, castling queenside. Here I would say play bishop b7 first, and then play c5. Now your queen has support, right? If they take, you take back with your pawn. The bishop's starting to come alive. b4 is an option. Your queen could get involved at some point here on c7 or a5. And again, they can't take because the queen is supported. So I wanted to mention that idea when it comes to c5 breaks and any kind of g6 system where white is castled queenside. Now, okay, we have that move of castling queenside. Here I recommend b5. Just go crazy, okay? Go crazy here. Go with b5. If you're a Hippo player and you're thinking, wait, I thought we played b6. In this case, guys, there's nothing. Why hold back? Why hold back at this point, right? You're going to play b5 eventually. Let's just do it. Tuck that knight, right? And if you see something like g4, you got to play h5. Okay, play h5. You cannot the biggest thing is that you cannot let them play h4 and h5, as I've mentioned, okay? You can play h5 the next move if you want. Like here, for example, you could play a move like c6 or bishop d7. There's different moves. You could play b4 and a5, but the moment that you see both of these pawns here, you got to play h5, okay? I would probably recommend just doing it now. But all right, what can white do here? If g5, all of a sudden we play e6, and it looks like we've played a regular Hippo. I mean, we have our two pawns here. The next move, we can tuck our knight. We can play a move like d5. The the whole idea here is that there's no pawn supporting this. So if we take, both of these squares are weakened from the white perspective. No pawns can really fight for those well right now. If they push, f5 is weakened. If they take, f5 is weakened. No matter what, we are going to get good squares because this pawn has 0 support. If a move like knight f3, let's kick that knight around. Let's play bishop b7. Start really going for that guy. Again, I don't care if you take, if you push, if you leave it there, we are going to get great play. If e5, we can throw our knight in. The whole idea there is if you take on b4, we take the bishop and we're attacking your rook. And if you capture, we take back. This bishop comes alive. You defend the knight. We play a5. We're advancing like crazy on the queen side. Move like knight d5 on the way. Bishop f8, queen d7. Great attacking chess. What does white have? Nothing. Nothing at all. I mean, we have a double pawn clamp on this square. This pawn can't do anything. This pawn stuck, this pawn stuck, this pawn stuck, this pawn stuck. I've said stuck a lot. And this pawn, again, we have a double pawn clamp. Black's just way better here. Okay, and h5. If white captures, okay, that's fine. We can take with the rook. Okay, take with the rook, not the pawn. That's very weakening to this g-file. We'd rather have our rook here eyeing up an h2 pawn, right? And, okay, if I move like h4, we can play b4, right? There's different moves here. I mean, if the knight wants to go to e2, we could play knight c4 right away. If knight b1, c5, another key idea that I've seen in many different things, the Hippo, the Pirc, the Modern, all this kind of stuff. If white takes, we have knight a4. That's the whole idea. We're not planning to take, guys. Trust me, that would be bad. Knight a4, and we're threatening checkmate. If you want to take, I mean, good game, right? And if you play a move like bishop d4, which is the only move here that gives white an even eval, everything else is way better for black, we can play bishop h6. And if you're in this kind of scenario, let's say you're in a tournament, you're in first place. Let's just imagine for a second, you're in first place the last round, you need a draw. Let's say you're playing someone higher rated and you want a draw. Let's say you're playing a grandmaster. Let's say you're playing against Magnus Carlsen. Okay, this is, obviously these examples are getting more and more far-fetched, but in this position, even if you're playing Magnus Carlsen, the only move here for white that is good is bishop e3. f4 is not great for white after e5. Okay, the computer likes black there. Okay, if bishop e3, if you want a draw against Magnus Carlsen, which I would personally, you can play bishop g7. Again, there's only one move for white that's good. That's bishop d4. Okay, if e5, surprisingly enough, rook takes h5. What is going on? I don't know, but that is what the computer recommends, around -1 for black. How else do you stop this well? I mean, if you play the move of c3, we take, right? If a move like, b captures, there's a lot of things that we can do there, but at the end of the day, we just have a ton of pressure on the white camp. And if knight takes, we can capture and play queen a5, right? I mean, that pawn on c3 is extremely weak. Yeah, I mean, a move like bishop d4, we kind of pester white again. The second that you block, let's just keep adding the pressure. Let's keep getting more and more activity. With a queen a3 threat here, it's going to be hard for white to hold on. And going back to queen a5, if white captures, notice they are threatening d7 check. That is a huge threat, so let's stop it. Okay, let's play this move, bishop d7. And yeah, black's better here. If they take again, I just had to share this, okay? Will this ever happen in a game, ever? Probably not, but, I guess it's better to be over-prepared than under-prepared. Rook d5 is the computer move. I've been studying theory for years. That might be the craziest opening move I've ever seen. What in the world is that? Anyways, I just had to say that. Yeah, that when I saw rook d5, I took a double glance, right? By the way, I didn't make this up, okay? That's a stockfish, but I made a double glance, what in the, is that rook d5? I thought I read it wrong, but I didn't. Rook d5 is the best move. Here's the idea. If you take with the e pawn, why did we do that? This diagonal opened up. Okay, we're going to take on c3. If the queen runs, we throw in a check. Okay, if king b1, oh my gosh, we just take advantage of that diagonal, right? If king c2, this move here is still good. Not the best, though, because white can block and, survive a little bit longer. It's still literally a mate and 11. But I think a little faster here is queen b2. Now playing check, right? Instead of checking earlier where they can block, we check here first. Then when the king gets lured out, then we take advantage of that diagonal. At move 24, we have ourselves a game over. What happens if the queen captures? Okay, again, the pawn, we'll go to the bishop takes c3. If the queen captures, we have queen captures on c3, queen b2, that's it. And finally, if the queen runs, let's say it goes to c2 or something, we can play queen a3. Yeah, I mean, that's just not good for white, let's be honest. And if queen b2, we take, we're going to win your queen. If you try to save your queen, I'm sorry, the queen's going to fall. Queen takes a2, we take. I mean, this is just black obliterating white's queen side here. Okay, this is a crazy move, rook d5. Will I ever have it in a game? Probably not, but I'll have it memorized just in case. I mean, that's the kind of move where if you play that, your opponent thinks you're cheating. And if they do tell you you're cheating, just tell them, no, I just watched a Chess Giant video and he studied way too much theory on this. That, yeah, anyways, you get the point. So, okay, bishop e3. Yeah, I mean, again, we can, if you want to draw here, you can do this, right? You can play bishop g7, okay? And yeah, let's say you're playing against Magnus Carlsen and he keeps playing the best move and the best move and the best move. Y'all can just keep doing this back and forth. Guess what? You just got to draw. So that's an option. If you're trying to go for the win, you can take, okay? You can take, capture back with the rook, okay? Attacking the king, or not really attacking the king, but more putting vision on that king. And yeah, I mean, if something like knight d2, let's play queen b6, looking to sacrifice the rook. That queen would fall. And if something like queen b3, which by the way is the computer move, bishop g7, right? It's going to be very hard for white to play this practically. My king feels pretty safe here. A lot of white's pieces haven't even left. You know, they're starting squares. This rook on d1 is pretty solid, but it's not the best. You know, of course, our knight's not super active, but every other piece I feel like for black is doing something besides our rook, which is about to become very active in this game. If you see something like knight c4, okay, let's play queen c6. I mean, let's really put pressure on that guy. You know, we have moves like a5. We have moves like, you know, rook c8 or rook b8 at some point. It's just going to be hard for, you know, for white to manage a position like this. Bishop e6 as well, pinning that knight to that queen at some point. These are all ideas, right? And yeah, I mean, if you take the pawn, we have a5, right? It doesn't really help you to hold on to that knight because we end up pinning it to the queen. If you play queen a3, we could take, that's fine. Or we could play bishop e6, keep adding the pressure. If the knight runs rook b8, attacking that pawn on b2, play a move like knight c3, attack that rook. Here you can play a4, crazy attacking chess, and notice that taking doesn't work because knight b1, we bring our knight to the other side of the board, and the queen is trapped. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Hey, thanks for watching today's video. I wanted to give a quick shout out to my Patreon supporters for the month of April in 2024. Appreciate y'all a ton. And if you haven't thought about becoming a member before on the Patreon community, I highly recommend that you go check it out. Check out some of the benefits that you gain by becoming a member. All that to say, again, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Just a reminder to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and that bell if you don't want to miss out on anything coming your way. And I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.